Hey there, welcome to Toy Talk with Mike and Chad, episode 23. I'm Mike. Chad isn't with me right now, but he's going to join us later in the episode because I had Chad over the last week of December and we tried to cram a whole lot of information into one really long video. We were trying to review all of the last toys that I got before the end of the year. We were trying to post our best of the year lists, and we were trying to do kind of a year in review. So as we were filming that, we realized that we had to split that up into 2 episodes. So we did Chad's best of the year, and then we tried to fit everything else into the other episode. But as I was editing it, I realized, especially when I started shooting the B-roll, and I was shooting the close-ups and putting in, close-up shots of the figures, the video was still way too long, so I had to chop it in 2. So because of that, we didn't shoot 2 more introductions. So that's me shooting in this introduction just to kind of jump right into the conversation with me and Chad. It's going to be part 2 of my final toy purchases of 2022. And then when we're done with that, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of a year in review. It's been a good year. The YouTube channel, we're a small little channel, but, I appreciate, we started with, no subscribers. And anyway, this year we hit 2,000 subscribers. So that's awesome. Thank you to everybody who subscribed. If you watch these videos and you haven't subscribed, I would ask you to please subscribe. Also, we're up to 370,000 views or so. That's combined with all my videos. And I know that might seem like small potatoes to some channels. But to me, I'm just a very small little corner of the internet. These are not very well put together videos. I don't really think them out in advance. Anyway, I'm just happy to have that many views, that many subscribers. So thank you very much. Even over on my Instagram, I finally hit the 500 mark for followers. So that's something I've been teetering around like 480 for like pretty much the entire year. It didn't seem like anybody new was finding me on Instagram. So I just crossed over the 500. So if you're not following me on there yet, go check me out. It's Mike's Collection Halifax. Hey, why don't we just jump in to me and Chad talking about the last toys that I bought in 2022. So this is another figure I got from Big Bad Toy Store this week. This is Plague Spawn, who is very Venom/Carnage-like. So this is a new character that McFarlane recently introduced. The storyline in Spawn these days is, I think the storyline, I've been buying Spawn since issue 1, and I think the storyline originally was, I think they said something like every 400 years, Hell puts a new Spawn on Earth. Maybe it was every 200 years. I don't remember what it was. Anyway, so Al Simmons is the Spawn that we know, and so he's on Earth fighting demons and all that stuff. And then in the 90s, when McFarlane started making Spawn toys, he started making all these spin-offs of Spawn, kind of like just for fun. So he had like Pirate Spawn and like Army Spawn, or what, I can't even, like there's Ninja Spawn, Samurai Spawn, all these weird Spawns from across the years. But they weren't ever part of the canon of Spawn. They were just like, for fun.
It's more like, how can I refresh my brand and exploit it to make more money?
Yeah, but now in the comic book, the current storyline is that there's a rip in time, and all the demons and all the Spawns from various eras are all on Earth at the same time. So now we're seeing characters like Samurai Spawn and Ninja Spawn and all interacting with one another. And now all of a sudden, these characters that felt kind of like not that important before, all of a sudden they're like characters from the core book, and now they all of a sudden feel a little bit more
Spawny.
More spawny, or is it more necessary to your collection? It's like with Batman. Back in the 90s, they used to make like Deep Sea Dive Batman, Outer Space Batman, and they were just like, they didn't really appear in the comic books or the cartoons. They just made them so kids would buy them, and that's kind of what Spawn was like back then. But now that once Batman starts appearing in those costumes and they make a movie about Batman in space, then all of a sudden you want Outer Space Batman. And so Plague Spawn is one of the other Spawns that's now running around the Spawn universe. So this is not Al Simmons. This is his own character. And supposedly, this is the original Spawn. This was the prototype that Hell made before any other Spawn. So he's a little bit deranged. He's a little bit more animalistic. And he's cool. I think he looks really cool in the comic books. There's not much to him. He's basically this kind of all black, kind of fiery face looking.
He's got a very thin head, though.
I don't know. I think the head looks okay.
I have maybe some other issues with this figure, but I think the head sculpt looks okay. And this is a really new figure for me, and I had a little bit of newness bias that I almost wanted to push this guy through. Like, I really don't think he would qualify as best of the year. He's just not interesting enough, and the paint job on the face doesn't really work for me.
Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. There's something off with his face.
It's supposed to... The way they drew him, that it looked like he had like an all-black kind of... But his eyes and his mouth were hollow, and it looked like there was like maybe a fire in his chest. You would see the heat coming out of him. So the way they drew him here is his eyes are yellow, his mouth is yellow, but then they painted his upper and lower teeth bright orange. And it almost looks like he has like a beak to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. There's something wrong with the head for sure.
So that's what kind of hurts this figure for me, but I do think it's cool. I'm glad I got him. So, anyway.
So here's a closer look at Plague Spawn, along with his accessories. So you can see that he comes with a display base, just like all Spawn figures do. However, just like the display bases that come with McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse figures, it's a small stand with just one peg. So it's a little awkward because unless you have their legs really close together, and when you do that, then that tends to make them want to topple over. I really wish they either gave you 2 pegs, which would help them stand up on such a small base, or give you a wider base, or even give you 2 of these. Now, in the case of Plague Spawn, they kind of did, because he's got this extra little base here with all these little skulls and stuff on it, and you see that's got a little peg on it as well. So you could put a foot on this peg, and then his other foot can go on the other little black circle, and that way he can still have a pretty wide stance, which helps these guys stand up on your shelf. So, I'm not going to talk about this guy a ton because me and Chad already talked about him. But anyway, there is a close-up of the face. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about with how they made that kind of flaming insides look. So he's painted bright yellow, and then he's got kind of a bit of an orange trim, kind of orange eyeliner around his eyes and around his mouth. But the way the teeth are painted orange like that, and it's really, prominent on the front. You don't really see it go all the way around his mouth, even though it does. But from the front view, it just kind of looks like he's got a little beak on him. And I don't love it, although it's not terrible either. If I thought it was really bad, I wouldn't have bought this figure. And honestly, the more I kind of fiddle around with him, the less it bothers me. But yeah, it's a cool figure. And I do like, all of this little bits here. This is kind of soft and pliable plastic that's plugged into him. He's got these big, crazy clawed hands, which are pretty cool. This one here with a big crazy finger coming off of it. But he does have kind of little smaller hands if you'd rather give him those. The paintwork looks nice. He's got this kind of, he's all black, but he's got this kind of white or gray wash, which brings out some of the detail. Double jointed knees, double jointed elbows, ankle, toe articulation, all that stuff. So moves great, looks pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with this guy.
I've got one Masters of the Universe guy I'm going to talk about here. You know what? Actually, I'm not going to talk about him. I got Camo Con recently. He's cool, but I still have to do a video for my last batch of Masters of the Universe figures I got, like Snake Arbor He-Man and the original Cobra Con. I might as well just talk about him when I do that video.
Sure.
So let's not talk about him. Forget you saw him. I've got some reaction figures. Now, these guys I was pretty excited about. These are the Beastie Boys from the Sabotage video. So, they're not supposed to be the Beastie Boys, like Ad Rock and all that stuff. It's the characters they played in the video. So, the video was supposed to be kind of like a spoof 70s show. Yeah. So, they say Vic Colfari as Bobby the Rookie. So, you've got kind of a fake actor's name with the fake character name for a show that doesn't really exist. They all have the same packaging with that kind of 70s graphic artwork on there. Little images on the back of the 3 different characters. I think they're a blast. Even if you didn't like the Beastie Boys, I think just that video was so fun. I'd actually like to see them make, they say Bunny, and there's these other characters in the video. Make those guys too.
You said your favorite was Vic Alfari.
Probably.
Mine is Alessandro Allegre. Yeah, the Chief.
Yeah, they're fun. I haven't opened them up yet. I will, probably. I think these guys would look really cool pinned up on the wall. But as I've done before with my reaction figure, sometimes I just slice the side of the bubble. That way I can take the figure out, I can play with them, and then I can tuck them back in there. And he basically looks like they're still sealed. That way if I decide to pin these guys to my wall as kind of like an art piece, I can do that. But I think I gotta handle them a little bit just because they're so cool.
Okay, so I've opened up my Beastie Boys ReAction Figures. So now I can add them to my collection of Beastie Boy figures. Earlier this year, I got the robot and the monster from the Intergalactic video. So yeah, hopefully we continue to get more characters in this line. I was always a fan of the Beastie Boys. I don't consider myself a diehard fan by any means, but these figures are a lot of fun, and I can definitely see myself buying at least a few more of these guys. Anyway, so like with any reaction figure, the articulation is pretty simple. Arms forward and backward, legs forward and backward, head turns. That's it. There's no knees or elbows or ankles or wrists or anything like that. So what you see is what you get. But that's part of their charm. Some people will never understand why people like these figures. But yeah, I think they're great. I think it's pretty obviously a nostalgic connection to the toys of the 70s and the early 80s. And yeah, I just love reaction figures, and I think they're getting better all the time. Some of the early ones, the sculpts on the human characters were pretty soft. But with these ones here, you can clearly tell who these characters are supposed to be. If you're familiar with the Sabotage music video, I think these guys are pretty instantly recognizable, especially when they're all together like this. So yeah, this here is Vic Colfari, also known as Bobby the Rookie. He looks pretty great. He's probably my favorite of the bunch. And so you can see how I opened them. I kept the bubble on the card. I just kind of sliced the side and took out the little tray here. So if I want to, I could kind of tuck this back inside and display them on my wall. Now for an accessory, you notice he has a donut. And there is a scene in the music video where he's chomping on a donut. So I guess that makes sense. It's a pretty perfect little accessory for this guy. It's just held in there with some Scotch tape. I feel I might just keep it there. Otherwise I'll probably lose it. This here is Alessandro Allegre, also known as the Chief. So he's also pretty great. So this guy's in his three-piece suit. Got his badge on there. Looks pretty good. Now for accessories, he has got a radio, which I guess makes sense. There's a lot of radios in the music video. They're all talking to each other on these like walkie-talkies or whatever. There is a particular scene with the chief in the police car, and he's talking in a radio, a different style of radio. But I guess, that accessory works good for any one of these guys. Now, I'll be honest, I'm a little confused when it comes to Nathan Wind, also known as, I don't know how to say his name, Cochise, maybe? But yeah, his accessories, like you see, he's got two holsters there. So it would make sense if he had a couple of guns. But instead, he comes with a couple of bananas. And I don't recall there being any scenes in the video where he had bananas in his holsters or where he was eating a banana. Maybe I missed it. But yeah, I really don't understand why he came with a couple of bananas when I really think he should have came with a couple of guns, perhaps. But yeah, this is a pretty great figure too. To be honest, maybe this one might be my favorite. I don't know. But these guys are just a lot of fun. They look really cool. When I'm taking photos for Instagram of my other reaction figures, these guys are going to be really good kind of extra figures to expand the scene. They work as civilians. They work as cops. Yeah, just really great figures.
All right. One more figure to talk about. So a month ago, a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I did a video where I said, these are all the G.I. Joe classified figures for the year, part 2. Midway through the year, I did all the figures I got kind of for the first half of the year. And then I thought, come December, I was done buying G.I. Joe figures. But then I got Zorana and Dusty. And I did another video review with those guys. And then I got this guy. We both got this guy. And so the story behind this guy is, so earlier this year, Hasbro put out a classified version of the Crimson Guard, which was an excellent figure. It looked just like the vintage one, blown up to the 6-inch scale. I've previously reviewed that, so you can find the video. It's a contender for my best of the year list. And he came in the standard classified box. But Hasbro also has a kind of a subline of the G.I. Joe Classified called the Retro card. I don't know. So they come out like on a big blister card. And so they put out a Walmart exclusive blister carded version of the Crimson Guard. And I thought, okay, well, he went up for pre-order. Somebody on Facebook had kind of tipped me off and said, it's up for pre-order on Walmart's website right now. And sure enough, it was sold out like really quickly. But I jumped on there and I pre-ordered them, put them through I checked out as a guest. And I put it through and it said your order is complete. But then I never got a confirmation email. And I've bought enough stuff online for the last 20 years that I know when you buy something, you get a confirmation email right away. Like, it's there. And I waited a couple of minutes, and there was like, why is there no confirmation email? And I couldn't log into my account because I checked out as a guest. And I was like, something went wrong here. You know, it didn't... I checked my bank. It didn't say there was any pending.
Yeah.
So I was like, panic. So I was like, I better buy another. So I did it again. Exact same thing. And then I was like, what? So I was like, okay, I'm going to create a Walmart account. Maybe that's what I have to do so I can at least track this and make sure it went through. So I created a Walmart account, bought a third one, and this all happened in the span of about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Bought a third one, and still no confirmation email, by the way. And I was like, well, whatever. I did what I could. Maybe one of these will go through, maybe all three of them will. And then about a half hour later, I got 3 confirmation emails. And then I was like, well, I don't need 3 of these. 2 at most.
Yeah.
But I kind of thought maybe you would want one. And I kind of thought maybe my brother Doug would want one. So I didn't cancel any of them. And then just a week or so ago, I got an email from Walmart saying they were all ready to pick up. So yeah, you took one off my hands. Yeah. Doug didn't want one because I had previously gotten him the black-faced one. And Doug's not hardcore enough to feel he needs both. But getting 2 worked out okay for me because... So here he is. So I'll do a side-by-side with him and the other Crimson Guards so you can see the differences. But they're the exact same. They have the same accessories and everything, except for the paint job. This guy is a kind of a brighter red. The other guy is kind of more of a crimson. And then the faceplate. This guy's got a silver faceplate, where the other guy's got like a black faceplate. So, yeah. So those 2 are different enough. Now, I got 2 of this version. And what I thought would be really cool to do with the 2 is... I've explained this all to you before, so I'll just do it very quick. In the comic books, the Crimson Guard, they have series of Crimson Guard where they get a whole squad of guys and they all have to get plastic surgery to look the same under their mask. And the reasoning behind that was kind of like they would put these guys out in society in prominent roles and influential positions, and if something happened to one of them, they could put another guy in his place to take over. Something along those lines. It's been a long time since I've read those original Marvel G.I. Joe comic books. But, so there was a series, there might have been a Tom series and a Bob series and a Frank series. But the Crimson Guard series that got a lot of screen time in the comic book was the Fred series of Crimson Guards. And they were all these guys that were kind of like red-headed guys with their hair combed over to the side. And one of the Freds actually assassinated Cobra Commander, which was pretty shocking at the time. And it was right around the time when Cobra Commander was getting his new battle armor. Yeah. And so he was trying it on. He's like, yeah, this works. This is cool. This will help me. Because Serpentor had showed up around that time, and Cobra Commander, I think, was feeling a little inadequate, so he wanted to kind of up his game so he could challenge Serpentor for the rule of Cobra. So he got this new armor, and he was like, yeah, this works. But then Fred shot him in the back, killed him, and he put on the armor. He went to Cobra headquarters and says, hey, it's me, I'm Cobra Commander. And nobody knew the difference because the armor supposedly changed his voice, you know. And so for a couple of years in the comic book, like, Cobra Commander was actually just a Fred Crimson Guard. And Cobra Commander came back from the dead in issue 100 and took over again and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, Fred was an important character. And actually in the modern era of G.I. Joes, like that ran from 2007, they actually did some figures of Crimson Guards with removable helmets, and they had Fred's head underneath. So anyway, I took my second Crimson Guard, and I gave him what I would call a Fred head. And I think it looks pretty good. So now I can display these guys on my shelf, one with a helmet, one without. And funny enough, I got an Arcade figure last year. And you know Arcade, he's an X-Men villain. And he almost has always had red hair kind of parted to the side. But in his most recent appearance, he had like long curly hair. And so the arcade figure came with both heads. I opted to display him with the long curly hair. So I had this extra head floating around. And I thought, you know what, this might make a good Fred head. So that was what I was going to use. But the arcade head had kind of this like goofy smirk on his face. And Fred's hair wasn't that bright orange red. It was kind of almost more of a cherry, like dirty blonde or something. And I used this Steve Rogers head. And I think it looks much better. And it actually looks a lot like the small Fred that came out a couple years ago in the modern line. So the consistency, like it really looks good. Plus, when I see this head, I don't immediately think of Steve Rogers. If I hadn't told you guys, you might not have been able to guess where that head came from. Like, Arcade doesn't wear any sort of mask or helmet. So when I see that face, I think Arcade. But you don't often see Steve Rogers necessarily without his cowl on and stuff. So yeah, this kind of works for me. And I don't see Captain America when I look at this. It just works for me as a Fred. Any thoughts?
I was happy to get one. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, didn't you end up getting like a notification after you picked those up that your items were shipped or something?
Yeah, I got an email 2 or 3 days ago that says, we apologize, but your Crimson Guard orders have been delayed. We'll let you know. And anyway, I've had them for like a week already. You know,
maybe you'll get 6.
Yeah, I don't need 6, but I do think I got them. I might have got them early. Like we're in Canada, and we never get anything early. Like you'll never come to our channel first to see a review because a bunch of other YouTubers have already got things. But after I posted this on Instagram, I had some guy say, Mike, I hope you don't mind. We took your images so we could put on our website, like in-hand images. You know, it's been spotted in the wild. And I was like, no, go ahead, use my images. But like that's never happened to me before. And I've posted like thousands of action figure shots. So I'm wondering if maybe Walmart got maybe I got them earlier, like pre-street date or something. But anyway. No, come on. Here, you want any blankie? Here, how about that? It's cozy. Come on. Get in. Okay. There you go. Cozy, cozy, cozy.
Or maybe one of the Freds infiltrated Walmart and is trying to fuck with you.
Yes. That joke worked better the second time.
The second time, yeah. It got cut out the first time, so.
Yeah, Chad was proud of his Fred joke, but my tablet times out after 40 minutes, and literally just as he was about to say it, timed out. So, anyway, there you go.
Round 2.
You got it in.
So here's a closer look at all of my G.I. Joe classified Crimson Guards, including the 2 new retro card figures, as well as the previous release that came in a box. So when I first ordered the retro card ones, which are a Walmart exclusive, also available on Hasbro's Hasbro Pulse website, the only difference that I was fully aware of was that they had the silver faceplate, different from the black faceplate on this guy. However, when I got them, it became pretty obvious that there was a difference in color as well. And I don't know how I feel about that. You know, in some way it's kind of nice because it differentiates the figure a little bit more and it justifies me buying an additional figure as opposed to them just painting his face differently. But at the same time, when you're building a squad of Crimson Guards, I feel there needs to be a reason for these guys' uniforms not to match. So, you know, it'd be one thing if I had like 5 of this one and 5 of these ones, and I could say, yeah, this is Squad A and Squad B, and their outfits are different colors for whatever reason. But as it stands now, with these 3 guys, I don't really know how to, justify it in my mind. Like this guy here, I plan to display him with his helmet off. So he almost seems like he would be the commander. So it'd be okay if he was the only one in the bright red, and then, you know, these 2 guys follow him, but then why are their suits not matching? It would almost make more sense for me to have this Crimson Guard unmasked, but then I would have these 2 figures be basically completely identical, and I wouldn't even be making use of the black faceplate. So, I don't know. These are just the kind of things that nerds like me think about when we're trying to display our figures. But regardless, they're cool both ways. I like both figures. So I don't think there's any differences as far as like the paint apps. Like you see, this guy's got a little buckle on his boot. So does this guy. This guy's got silver paint kind of all across his jacket with the medals painted there, kind of like a double-breasted type of jacket. That's all painted. It's all the same on this figure here. There's no new paint deco. But so what is different is the face, the red, and also the backpack. You'll notice this one is red where this one was black. But yeah, otherwise they work the same. The backpacks are pretty cool in that they have little knobs on each side. So one where you can display the sword that can be sheathed on the side there. I'll try and get that out. There you go. And the other one you can display his rifle. And I think the swords are the same even on the new figure. They still have the silver blade in there. So no real difference there, I don't think. Now you'll see with with my unmasked Crimson Guard, I have him displayed with both his rifle and his sword on his backpack, so you can see how that storage works. And it works pretty well. You'll also notice both of these guys have display bases with the Cobra logo on them, which is fantastic. All of the G.I. Joe retro card figures come with a display base with 2 pegs, so they stand on them very well. So I already have Baroness and Gung Ho from this line. They come with display bases. I really wish the basic figures that came boxed had display bases as well. Hopefully in the future maybe we'll see that. I don't know. But yeah, there's a closer look at the unmasked Fred. And I think it looks great. Now I'll be honest, it's held on there really good, but that's because I had to apply a little bit of stick tack to it. It was not a total clean fit. Neither was when I tried the arcade head. I also tried a different Captain America head that looked more like Chris Evans. None of them fit on there very snug. So regardless of which Marvel Legend head I was going to use for my Fred, I probably would have had to use a little stick tack. But now that I have, it's on there nice and firm. It's not going anywhere. And I think he looks pretty cool just holding on to his helmet, even though he can't, put that over his head. But that's the way it kind of appears when he's holding it like that. Whoops. Now, anyway, I do just want to show you some precedent here with these figures. So Crimson Guards in the past have always had the black helmet. I do have some vintage Crimson Guards, but I don't have them handy. This is one from what we call the modern era or 3rd generation. These are the 4-inch Crimson Guards. And it's decoed to look like the original Crimson Guard figure. But also during those years, we got the silver-faced Crimson Guard. So this is the first time we saw that. So that's what this new figure here is based on. So it's a pretty nice update to that one. And this figure here also came out in the modern era. And this is not me making any sort of customization. This figure actually did come with the alternate head. And this helmet is intended to fit over top of the head like that. So yeah, he's got a removable helmet. And that is the head they designed to look like the Fred character. So even though in the comic books he was much more of a redhead, this guy's very clearly blonde. This is what I'm used to seeing on my shelf. This guy is always in my line of sight for the last several years. Whenever I'm shooting my videos, I'm staring at this figure across the room. And so yeah, when I found the Steve Rogers head, I thought it was like a really good update. And it looks like it's supposed to be a modern version of this guy. So yeah, looks really, really good. And I'm really pleased with him. So there you go. Those are my Crimson Guards. Alright, so that was the last of my toys. The only other thing I was thinking we would talk about, and I sort of gave you a heads up on this, but I did a year in review video last year.
Yes.
So besides my best of the year and everything, I kind of just wanted to talk about what I liked this year, what I hoped for next year. And so I actually went back and watched my video from last year.
Okay.
Which is tough to do. It's hard to go back and watch myself and it's like, which led me, I probably would have forgot to mention this, but one of my highlights for this year
was you, my friend.
Shucks.
And I think partly because when I started this channel, I always wanted to... The original concept was I wanted somebody to bounce things off of. And you guys watching can correct me if I'm wrong, but like I feel a little bit more natural speaking to somebody else than just speaking to a camera. And watching my last year, and it's not like I was a rookie anymore. It's one thing if I go back and watch my first video. It's pretty awkward and I'm not very good on camera. But just by last Christmas, I thought I was probably seasoned enough. But it was hard to watch, and I feel like the way I speak isn't very natural because I'm not speaking to another person. So I think having you as a co-host this year has been a real blessing. I really like having you. So thank you. But I wanted to revisit some of the things I talked about last year. So I talked about each of my main toy lines. Mm-hmm. So Star Wars Black Series. My main takeaway last year was that I was underwhelmed by that toy line and I was losing excitement. And I would say that's exactly where I still am. It's just not a toy line I'm getting excited with. They just keep putting out the same figures and repaints over and over again. And I had said I'd bought 20 of them in 2021. This year I was down to 12. And to be honest, I was surprised it was even that much.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I bought 12. But my wants last year were Reese, Hammerhead, Squidhead, Nine Num, and Psy Snoodles. Those were the ones that I said, those would be cool figures.
Yeah.
They were all like original trilogy characters. They're all like alien characters. I feel that's what the line needs to stay fresh. Like, kids want cool aliens. Yeah. They don't want Cassian Andor. It's
3 times.
Yeah. And it's disappointing to see that none of those characters got made. So I guess if I was going to have a want list, those 5 would still remain.
And then for like our generation, that was like 4, 5, and 6. They were characters in that. And as your clientele starts to age, we want to see things that are nostalgic from the original trilogy. It's just annoying. I would echo what you said there about aliens and stuff, because same way, like, I mean, you got the new Boba Fett.
Yeah.
To me, I was surprised that you actually got him, but I knew you wanted him. He's just not that exciting. Once you have one,
See, Boba Fett, like, he's not an alien.
He's not.
But when you were a kid, like, I had no idea Boba Fett was even really human.
Yeah, he's badass.
Like, he's essentially like, he looks like a cool robot, bounty hunter, whatever. So he fits in that category of characters that I want to see. Like, I'm okay with them making human characters as long as the humans aren't just wearing khakis and a jean jacket, which it seems like most of the characters nowadays are wearing. Like, I loved the Andor show. I loved how grounded in reality it was, but it doesn't make for good action figures.
No.
And so yes, I did get Boba Fett this year. I got Bib Fortuna. I got my all-time favorite Star Wars character and an alien Walrus Man, but he was a big disappointment.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if they want me to keep buying their figures, they got to up their game and start adding some more original trilogy aliens. So that's where I stand on. If you had to think of your top couple hopefuls, who would you want to see?
I would like to see Hammerhead, original trilogy. I would like to. Well, they are putting the Ewoks out, so that kind of takes care of that itch. A Tauntaun. Have they put a Tauntaun?
Yeah, I got a Tauntaun. He's up there somewhere, up next to my Sky Striker over there. You can see.
Okay. More droids.
More droids. Yeah. That's the thing. Robots, aliens, monsters. That's the stuff I want. So I'll talk about Transformers. So, what I said last year about Transformers was that I was excited by the upcoming reveals because there were so many that I didn't want.
Yeah. And
I feel that way about a lot of these toy lines is like, I don't want to buy 400 figures next year. I want to buy 200 or less. Like, my bank account would really appreciate a break.
Yeah.
So when I see that, like, oh, they're doing a bunch of repaints of Marvel Legends and a bunch of more Optimus Primes and Bumblebees that I don't feel I need, that's great. like I don't hum and haw, but they're not making more characters I want. Like as long as they don't completely stop giving me new characters, a break is welcome. So that's what I said last year. I was looking forward to a break. However, I bought 27 Transformers in 2021. I bought 36 in 2022.
Ooh.
So I don't know what happened there because I thought I wasn't going to be buying that many figures, but sometimes I bought 10 more than I did last time. Now, my wants that I said last year was updated versions of Gears and Windcharger.
Okay.
Because they're both small guys, and a lot of the other small guys are now being upsized, and those were two guys that I felt needed an update. That didn't happen. I asked for Rollbar, who was one of the throttle bots, and he's not really high on my list. I was just kind of desperately trying to think of some G1 characters who haven't been done. Anyway, still no Rollbar, and none of the throttle bots for that matter. And I asked for Barrage and Venom, which were two of the deluxe Insecticons. Didn't get them either. Although they did put out one of the other deluxe Insecticons that I didn't ask for, Ransack, but they put him in a box set of 5 figures that I don't want the other figures, so I probably won't end up even getting that Ransack. So Transformers, my want list is probably about the same since I didn't really get any of them, and I still am hopeful that I won't have to buy too many. I'm hoping it'll be under 20 this year, maybe. We'll see. You don't really buy Transformers, do you?
I stopped probably 2022. I stopped probably 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And sold them all. I regret that. I really regret that. I don't have much to weigh in on with that. I have been trying to resist the urge to buy some because I don't need another line to get into. But at the same time, there's some really cool ones that are coming out.
Yeah, no, one thing,
Magnificus.
Yeah, he's cool. I like the Transformers Red series, which is the non-transforming. The line's been kind of hit and miss because the quality of the plastic's not very good. And really early on, they started mixing in, Beast Wars and Prime characters. So the line lacks focus. Is this going to be a G1? If it's going to be all brands, it's going to take them forever to get to the G1 characters I want. But that's one way that Hasbro could get a lot of money out of me, is if they really focus on G1 Red Series. Say they give me a Gears and a Windcharger in the Red Series, that would be almost ideal, as opposed to an upsized transformable version. So yeah, if they really kind of ramp up the Red Series, I'm probably going to buy a lot of those. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. And another thing that kind of sucks is, so I love the Transformers comics by IDW.
Yes.
I've raved about them before. It used to be a couple of series. There was one called More Than Meets the Eye. And then that series turned into Lost Light, which was the name of the ship the Transformers were flying. That was so good. It's one of the best comic book series.
That's the one you were trying to get me to read, right?
Yeah. It's one of the best comic book series I've ever read. And I've talked before about how the writer of the comics would take an obscure Transformer that I didn't care about and then elevate them and make you love that character. Then all of a sudden you wanted a toy of them. So in 2019, IDW stopped, they ended the Transformers universe. And then they started a new one. And they said, this is a whole new continuity. We're starting fresh. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll miss the one. Yeah. I'll miss everything that came before, but I'm on board for this. But I always collect it as a trade paperback.
Yeah.
So I wait for the collected editions to come out. Now, it has run for 43 issues. So since 2019. So we're, 4 years. And IDW has now lost the license. So they're not making any more Transformers comic books. Some other company will probably pick it up. Maybe it'll go back to Marvel. Who knows? Dark Horse. But they'll probably start fresh with something new altogether. And IDW never collected that 2019 universe. And so I never got a chance to read it. So literally just this week when we went to the comic book shop for their Boxing Day sale, I thought, well, I might as well grab whatever they have on hand. And they only had a sporadic few issues, so I grabbed them. And then I went to my comic shop just today, Strange Adventures, and I grabbed a couple of more issues. So my new mission for the next couple of months is to try and collect all that Transformers series. And all that is to say is I started reading them last night. I read about 3 issues of it. And they've got some characters in there that weren't in the old series. Like, these are either newly created characters, or they took some obscure character and now they've brought them to the forefront. And I'm realizing, like, oh no, this is going to be a repeat of the same scenario where it's like, some of these toys that are coming out now and I don't recognize the names, and I'm like, I don't need that character. I don't know that character. I bet I'm going to read about them in the comic book, and
they're going to come out.
And I'm going to want them now. So yeah, maybe buying this current Transformers series was a mistake, because it's going to probably make me want to buy a whole bunch of new toys.
That being said, if you were looking to complete that story arc of 46 issues or whatever you said it was, I would try the Comic Hunter.
Yeah. I might. It's like, it's not a major priority to do now. It's just I kept hoping against hope that they would put out some trade paperbacks before they lost the license. But now that the year is over and I know that they're not coming, that's when I kind of said, well, I guess I better start trying to buy them. I don't need to try and buy them all this week, but yeah, next time we're in New Brunswick, we go to Comic Hunter, I'll check them out. That was long-winded. I'll probably cut that out. Masters of the Universe Origins. So I bought 40 of them in 2021. I bought 35 in 2022.
Okay.
But I also bought another 11 Masters of the Universe figures that weren't Origins. So like Revelation and stuff like that. So 46 in total. My wants last year, I said Mantenna, Leech, and King Hiss. We got them. We got them this year. My other 2 were Too Bad and Drago Man. We haven't got them yet, but they'll probably come. I'm sure I could come up with some more wants up, but whatever. Like, as long as we're producing the figures coming out, yeah, I'm pretty happy with how Origins is plugging along. Do you have anything on Origins? You're not buying those at all either.
Well, funny you mentioned that. I did have a He-Man in my hand at Giant Robot the other day, debating on that as one of my figures to buy.
Was that the 40th anniversary?
Yeah.
He-Man? Right. So yeah, that's not Origins, but yeah, that's more like the Masterverse.
I don't understand all the different ones, so like
the Origins are the short, stumpy guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Revelations or Masterverse are the 7-inch guys.
Yeah.
So G.I. Joe. I bought 20 G.I. Joe Classified in 2021.
That's way up this year.
Not as much as you might think. 29
okay.
in 2022. Technically 31, I guess, because I bought 2 Crimson Guards and I bought 2 Zoranas. But really 29 unique figures. My want lists, so my number 1 was Zorana, but she had already just recently been announced, so I knew she was coming.
Okay.
So anyway, I got her. So the other Cobras I wanted was Wild Weasel, Heat Viper, Ice Viper. None of them have come yet. But the other one I said was the Hiss Tank pilot. And they did the HasLab Hiss Tank. So I've got I have 3 Hiss Tank drivers coming in different colors, plus the tank. So they really delivered on that one. And then for G.I. Joes, I said separately that I wanted Shockwave, Spearhead, Sneak Peek, Fast Draw, and Doc. None of them have come out. None of them have been announced.
Fast Draw, the cowboy one?
No, if you see him right there, see the guy in the corner with all those red missiles hanging off of him?
Yes.
Next to the basketball guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got this big, huge missile cannon that he carries around on his back. Not a cowboy. You're thinking Wild Bill probably as the cowboy guy.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so Fast Draw is kind of almost more of a science fiction looking guy. So yeah, I'd love to get him. Maybe, probably not something that's on their docket anytime soon, but who knows? They've surprised me with some of their character choices, like Crocmaster and the Blue Ninjas, and, I don't know. We've been getting some weird choices, so who knows? You got any wants on G.I. Joe?
Well, since I started recently getting back into them, I'd like to see some more Serpentors made so I can get one. Currently, I think the only one in Nova Scotia is in New Glasgow at GameStop. Re-release that Destro on the card.
Yeah.
And I would like to see Cobra Commander in his battle armor.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Because I had that toy as a kid.
then I would need another Steve Rogers head to put on him.
So you'd have to buy 2, and then
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with those ones. I don't really know the core guys. I guess just make some of the older releases available again.
Yeah, like we could do a video in the new year. I could probably list off 100 most wanted G.I. Joes. There's so many. Like, you guys can't see it, but like I'm staring at a shelf of G.I. Joes, and there's another shelf right over here. And so, yeah, there's so many characters there that I'm just looking at, and I'm like, yeah, I want him, I want him, I want him, I want him. So, yeah, fortunately, like, they're putting them out pretty quickly. So, I would just be really bummed if that line fizzled out in a year or two, and we still had so many Joes left to go.
I can't see it fizzling out if it's...
Yeah, it seems to be doing well.
It's pretty popular. I mean, anytime there's a release around here, get it or it's gone.
Yeah. So the other, probably one of my biggest collections is Marvel Legends.
Yeah.
Now this one actually took a big dip. I bought 87 Marvel Legends in 2021, 55 in 2022.
I was going to guess 58. Okay.
Yeah. So it's still a great line, but they are getting to the point where they're redoing a lot of characters, like they're redoing Wolverine and redoing Spider-Man. And I'm glad about that because I don't want to buy 87 of them every year. It's like the more doubles that I can skip, the better.
Yeah.
But as long as they still produce, some cool new figures. Like, I'd be happy if they give me 20 cool new figures every year and then a bunch of doubles for the other folks that missed out on stuff. That'd be great. So my wants last year... Sleepwalker was my number 1, although he, like Zorana, had just been announced.
Yeah.
So I knew he was coming, so I've got him. I also wanted Speedball, which I didn't know he was coming, but I got him this year. But other than that, I had wanted Speedball's New Warrior teammate, Namorita. They haven't done her. I also wanted, because they've done some members of the Serpent Society. My 2 favorite members, they haven't done Diamondback and Death Adder yet. They still haven't. From the New Mutants, I wanted Cypher. Still nothing with him. And I also wanted some of the original Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
So that would be like Yondu and Nikki and Charlie 27. None of those guys have been announced. Maybe with the new movie coming out, maybe they'll trickle some of those characters into that toy line. Who knows? But, so yeah, most of my wants still remain from that line.
Still remain wanted.
Yeah. Anything on Marvel Legends?
I didn't really start collecting that until recently, so I'm kind of just repeating what you were saying about releasing some of the ones that people miss. For me, my big one would be Nightcrawler, because he was one of my favorite X-Men. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. Now, another big line for me is reaction figures. Mm-hmm. So last year I said that was like my fastest growing toy line. I bought 76 in 2021.
I don't want to know how many you bought this year.
106 in 2022. So quite a lot of reactions. And that includes G.I. Joes and Transformers. I didn't count those with my Transformer and G.I. Joe list. Reactions is kind of its own category.
Yeah.
Now I should mention those aren't all necessarily officially Super 7 reaction figures. Because like Marvel puts out their little...
Yeah.
I count those as reaction figures. Same as Mezco is putting out their 5 points line. I count those as in that category as reaction figures. So yeah, I got a lot of them. Last year, when I said my want list, I thought James Bond would be a cool property. And that remains. I don't know if there's been no announcement about that. I'd love to see James Bond is... So, yeah.
I don't really know who I'd suggest for that.
Yeah. Now this one took... So, I don't consider myself necessarily a collector of Funko Pops, but I have a shit ton of them out there.
Yeah.
So I bought 31 Funko Pops in 2021. This year I only bought 8. So that's definitely kind of on its way out. My wants back then, they still all remain. I said from the movie Young Guns.
Yeah.
So I would like all those guys. They do a lot of bands.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite band is the Smashing Pumpkins. I would like to see them done. I collect The Office Funko Pop, so I said the British version of The Office and Funko Pop would be good. And then I also said some Wes Anderson characters. So, things like the Royal Tannenbaum, Rushmore, Grand Budapest Hotel. Give me some of those characters. And so none of those have been done, so that's still my want list, I guess, for next year. But I really kind of hope to continue the trend of kind of phasing those out a little bit. I've just got too many of them. And
I had quite a few of them. I collected the Overwatch ones when I was big on Overwatch, and essentially had too many, and it was taking up too much space that I don't have. So I traded them all in.
what do you get for them, just out of curiosity?
Ooh, half the price.
And were yours boxed or loose?
They were all boxed.
So was he giving you like $7?
Yeah, roughly. He'd give me half of what he'd sell it for. So
Yeah. Okay. The other line I kind of pulled out separately. So Ninja Turtles in 2021, I bought 12. Mm-hmm. This year I only bought 6. Most of those were Super 7 Ultimates.
Yeah.
But then there was the Last Ronin from Playmates. And I think that's probably it. I don't think I bought any NECA ones this year. So Ninja Turtles is another one that I'm happy with, that trending downwards too. I like Ninja Turtles, but I already have all the characters. Like I have the movie versions, I have the cartoon versions, I have the comic book versions. Like there's really nothing more I need from that line. So yeah, who knows? Maybe next year I won't buy any. But and the last line I had kind of specified was Mythic Legions. I bought 8 in 2021. I bought 7 in 2022. That's one I expect to kind of level out, or if anything, maybe dip. I've got, I think, 1 on pre-order for the coming year. I'm still thinking of pulling the trigger on a couple of those skeleton guys from the new wave, the Necronominus wave or whatever. But I'm only going to buy like 1 or 2 figures per wave. And so, yeah, I see that one kind of trending downward as well. Any thoughts on... You probably have something on Ninja Turtles to say.
Turtles, I would... I don't know. I was a big fan when I was younger. Had all the Playmates ones, like every version of every turtle you could imagine. I would like to see, I don't know, more kind of like retro turtles put out, like the frogs. Big fan of the frogs.
Like a redo of the old toys?
Yeah, so like either Playmates or, another party.
Or you could just buy the ultimate versions of them for $80 a piece.
I thought about that too.
Also in that video from last year, I talked about some things that I was excited about. So Super 7 had kind of just started they had taken over the license of Godzilla from NECA, and they had just started their Godzilla line. I was excited to see what they were going to produce. I have been pleased with their reaction figures. They haven't put out any Ultimates yet. They've shown some pre-orders, and they look cool, but I think they're just too expensive for me to collect, so that's kind of unfortunate. Because we complain about the $75 price point of like Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
These Godzilla ones, they're asking for like $120.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's just too much. I also said I was excited about the Invincible figures, which I was kind of actually surprised to hear myself say that last year, because I'm like, oh, well, I didn't buy any of them this year. And it's for no real reason. Like, I do love Invincible. I loved the comic book. I have the whole run. I enjoyed the animated series. I think the toys look pretty good. I think it was just one of those things where I said there's potentially so many characters in this line that they could do. I just didn't want to open that can of worms, and I just kind of made the decision not to get in on it. So, yeah, I think they've put out 4 different characters now, and with another 2 coming soon, and they look great, but I just think I'm going to have to skip that.
Pull a plug somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and then ultimately my final thing was I said, what would be my wish list? So there's no rumors of these toys coming or anything, but just if you asked me, what toys would you like? I would love to see a line of Tank Girl action figures, preferably based on the comic book series, but if they made them based on the live action movie, I would take those too. There's, as far as I know, never been a Tank Girl action figure in the history of the brand.
Okay.
It seems like long overdue. So I don't know if there's any hope of that happening, but that's still probably my number 1 property that I would like to see. And then the other thing is Battle Beasts, which I have them all pinned up in these clear cases behind me here. This is kind of the last 80s property that hasn't really gotten the deluxe treatment. Like the G.I. Joes, the Transformers, the He-Man, the Wrestlers, the Star Wars, all the toys I collected as a kid have all been revisited, bigger, better. and Battle Beasts have not. And it's a big line. Like I think there was like almost 80 figures in the original line, so that's a pretty big line. I have the whole collection. I'd really like to see those figures revisited. And I don't know. I'd be happy if they re-released the original figures, maybe just upsized them. If they were like 5 inches tall instead of 2 inches tall, and they could still sell them in 2-packs for a reasonable price, like maybe $30 for 2 5-inch figures or something. Even if just their arms were articulated, that's all I really need. But I just think it's a line I'd really like to see revisited. And whoever picks up that license would definitely get my money. I would be a completist for sure. So, and I'd love to see new characters integrated into it. I would take that too, even if they didn't upsize them at all. If they just wanted to continue the vintage line and just put out new animals or something, I'd be all over it. Anyway, so
they can do it with Pokemon. There's no reason they can't do it with Battle Beasts.
You'd think. So those are my big want lists. So pretty much not much has changed really from last year to this year. Do you have any last things that you would want?
I would probably. Mine is like a wish based on the multiverse figures. I wish McFarlane and the development team would start working on better articulation in the arm joints, specifically for like figured characters with like armor, because it often hinders the rotation amounts. Casey's asleep.
Yeah.
And I would also like, you know what I mean when I say the diaper? Like the
diaper crotch kind of thing.
Yeah, they need to work on that and maybe adopt like a G.I. Joe style diaper, because some of those figures are so tight in the leg joints and they prohibit movement. That would be one thing from McFarlane. A franchise I would like to see, I think I talked to you about this before, was Army Ants.
Yeah.
I would like to see them do something with those, because they're pretty cool. I had a ton of those when I was a kid.
And it seems like something that could definitely happen. Like, I don't know if you've seen these, but I forget which company does it, but they've done new versions of like Barnyard Commandos. Yeah. And what's the other line they did? There's a couple of those like kind of, they weren't super popular toy lines. There's a new toy line. It's not exactly Food Fighters, but it's like a company that's kind of basically homaging Food Fighters, so that's coming around again. And Army Ants just seems like one of those kind of small properties that, like Mad Balls are back, that's another one, that a small company could probably not have to pay very big licensing fees to get Army Ants and to put them out again. And they could either just do them like the originals, non-articulated, or they could go all in and make 6-inch articulated action figures and
be sweet.
They'd be cool.
The last thing I would like to see is I backed on Kickstarter a comic book just before the pandemic by Scott Snyder and Tony S. Daniel, Noctera, and I'm really into that comic. It's kind of like a future apocalyptic world where in the darkness monsters can find you, and they I'm not going to spoil it. Anyways, I would like to see someone pick up those as action figures, because they've got a lot of great characters in them.
Yeah. Cool.
I think that's my limited wish list.
All right. So that's, I guess, our year-end in review. Anything more you want
to... No, just thanks for having me along on the ride. It's nice to have someone to bounce things off. Like you said, I don't have... Well, I have friends, but they're not into this sort of thing. Like, I can talk to them about it, but they don't really care. They don't collect, so it's nice to have a fellow collector that I can actually...
Yeah, I hear you. That's why I started talking to these folks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is nice, though. As much as I enjoy the interaction with the folks online, it was hard not to feel a little wooden sometimes talking to the camera. So yeah, it's nice that we became pals this year and
real people.
Anyway, yeah. So that's we'll be back soon with another video in 2023. But yeah, I guess that's it for now. So
Happy New Year, everyone. Stay safe.
Yep. Happy New Year.
I'll let you do it this time because I'm going to screw it up.
Okay. Good. So make sure to see. Watch how I do it. I point. But I point at the same area. I don't go around like you keep doing. So make sure to like and subscribe and leave comments below. So, see you next time. Ciao.
Keep collecting.
Casey, look at you. I feel like I look like I'm like in a wheelchair here.
Wheelchair Mike!
All right, Casey, get up, you fat motherfucker.